The Droungarios of the fleet, sometimes anglicized as Drungary of the fleet, was the commander of the Imperial Fleet, the central division of the Byzantine navy, stationed at the capital of Constantinople as opposed to the provincial fleets. For the late 11th century, when the Byzantine fleets were amalgamated into a single force under the doux, the post, now known as the Droungarios II stolou, became the second in command of the doux and continued in this role until the end of the Byzantine Empire. Background and history of the office. In response to the Muslim conquests, sometime in the latter half of the 7th century, the bulk of the Byzantine navy was formed into a single command, the Great Fleet of the Carabizianoi, commanded, like the land themes that appeared around the same time, by Strategos. The Carabizianoi, however, proved inadequate and were replaced in the early 8th century by a more complex system composed of 3 elements, which with minor alterations survived until the 11th century. A central fleet based at Constantinople, a small number of large regional naval commands, either maritime themes, like the theme of the Droungarios, or independent commands under a Droungarios, which eventually evolved into the maritime themes of the Aegean Sea and of Samos in the course of the 9th century, and a greater number of local squadrons in the land themes, charged with purely defensive and police tasks and subordinate to the local provincial governors. A fleet was based in Constantinople at least since the 7th century, and indeed played a central role in the repulsion of the 2 Arab sieges of Constantinople in 674–678 and 717–718. But the exact date of the establishment of the Imperial Fleet as a distinct command is unclear. J. B. Berry, followed by R. Gillen, considered it not improbable that the Imperial Fleet existed as a subordinate command under the Strategos and Carabizianon already in the 7th century. Certainly the Droungarios of the fleet first appears in the Cplakidas Uspensky of California, 842 and as there is little evidence for major fleets operating from Constantinople during the 8th century, Hélène Arvila dated the fleet's creation to the early 9th century. Thereafter, the Imperial Fleet formed the main central reserve force and provided the core of various expeditionary fleets. In the Cplakidas Uspensky, the Droungarios of the fleet is positioned relatively lowly in the hierarchy, coming after all the senior military and civilian officials placed between the protostrata and the ekprosopu of the themes. By the time of the 899 Cletologion of Philotheos, however, he had risen considerably in importance, being placed variously either immediately before or after the Logothetes II Dromu and in the 35th or 38th position of the overall hierarchy, ahead from the domesticoi of the guard regiments of the Hikanatoire and the numeroi, as well as of the various chartularioi. Indeed, he was not classed with the other military commanders, whether of the themes or of the tagmata, but in the special class of military officials, the stratarchi, where he is listed second after the hetariarchs, the commander of the imperial bodyguard. This rise coincided with the revival in the Byzantine navy's fortunes, begun under Michael III but carried to fruition under the first 2 emperors of the Macedonian dynasty, Basil I the Macedonian and Leo VI the Wise. The Cletologion further lists his subordinate officials as comprising his deputy autopatrates, the secretary a chartularios, the head messenger a protomandator and the other messengers, the commanders of squadrons a comites, and the centurions of the ships. In addition, there was a comestes heteres, whose function is disputed. According to Berry, he probably commanded the foreign mercenaries, especially as Scandinavians, who served as marines, but Nicholas Oikonomides considered him the head of the Droungarios personal guard. According to the ceremonies of the 10th century Emperor Constantine VII, he also had a role in imperial ceremonies, often in association with the Droungarios of the Watch. Typical dignities associated with the post were the senior ranks of Protospatarios, Patricios, and Anthropatos. The office reached its heyday during the 10th century, when several important personages held it, most notably Romanos I Lekarpanos, who used it as a springboard to the throne. The office continued in the 11th century, but as the fleet was no longer very active, he commanded chiefly the Constantinopolitan fleet instead of leading expeditions. The title was now usually referred to as Droungarios to stolou. With the accession of Alexios I Komnenos, a major reorganization of the navy took place. The great naval themes having long declines, Alexios gathered the remnants of the provincial fleets and amalgamated them with the Imperial Fleet into a single fleet based in Constantinople, and placed under the command of the Megas doux. The post of the Droungarios of the fleet remained in existence, now with the addition of the prefix Megas, as the navy's second-in-command. He was apparently in charge of subordinate Droungarioi, who however were of very lowly rank and appear rarely in the sources. Although reduced in significance in comparison to its heyday, the Megas Droungarios to stolou remained important, ranking 32nd in the overall hierarchy in the mid-14th century Book of Officers of Pseudo-Codinos. Pseudo-Codinos gives his ceremonial costume as follows: a plain silk kabardyan, a scaronican covered in golden lemon yellow silk and decorated with gold wire, and images of the emperor in front and rear, respectively depicted enthroned and on horseback. List of known holders. Uncertain entries are marked in italics. A number of holders are known only by the surviving seals of office and can only approximately be dated.